Hi, 6th graders, this is Mrs. Gall. Today we're going to talk through adding and subtracting polynomials. Open up to a fresh page in your notebook to write down some of these examples. Alright, you guys, so we're going to start by looking at examples, and we're going to go through quite a few different types, so make sure you're writing these down along with me. When we see a polynomial, they're usually written out in this horizontal format. It can be really helpful to stack the polynomials on top of each other to make sure you're lining up like terms. So you'll see polynomials, they're in these expressions, and they're just various terms within those expressions. What we want to do is combine our like terms. So I'm going to take my 2x plus 1, and I'm just going to stack it over here right underneath my 3x plus 4, making sure my like terms are there. Since I'm adding these two expressions, all I have to do is think about combining the like terms. We're going to get to subtracting in a little bit, and that's where kind of our thinking has to change. So if I add my like terms, I see I have 3x and 2x together, that gives 5x. And then I see 4 plus 1 together, those equal 5, and that is a positive 5. So my final expression for adding these two polynomials is 5x plus 5. Let's go on to another, a little bit longer example. 2x squared minus 4x plus 2 plus negative 2x plus 2. Just like in the last example, I'm going to encourage you to stack the polynomials on top of each other. So I'm going to be looking for my like terms to line those up. In my second polynomial, I see I have negative 2x. That x is just a single variable, so I'm going to stack that under my x over here, which was a negative 4x. Then I see I have a positive 2. It's a constant. So I'm going to stack my positive 2 under my constant in my first polynomial, which was also a positive 2. Now I add my like terms. 2 plus 2 gives us 4, and it's a positive 4. Negative 4x plus a negative 2x gives us a negative 6x. Adding two negatives gives us a negative answer. And then notice I have my 2x squared. My 2x squared does not have any like terms. I don't see another x squared in my second expression there, or in my second polynomial, so I just leave the 2x squared by itself, and it stands alone in that expression. So our final answer would be 2x squared minus 6x plus 4. Let's move on to try another example. X squared plus x minus 3 plus 3x squared minus 4. Again, I like to look for our like terms and stack our expressions, or stack the different parts of the expressions to add them together. So I notice that the first term in these parentheses is 3x squared. So I'm going to go to my first piece of my expression and look for my x squareds, which is the very first term listed. So we're going to write 3x squared, and it's a positive. And then I see negative 4, which is a constant. So I'm going to stack that under my other constant, negative 3. Notice I don't have an x in this second piece, so I don't have to worry about placing anything there. Now we add our like terms. Negative 3 plus negative 4 gives us negative 7. X plus nothing gives us x. And then x squared plus 3x squared. Remember, having x squared is just like having 1x squared, so together we get 4x squared. My final expression would be 4x squared plus x minus 7. Let's try one more where we have all three types of terms in both pieces. So we're going to start by stacking our like terms. In the second polynomial here, we have x squared. So we're going to stack that underneath my negative 2x squared. Next is negative x. We're going to stack that under our positive 3x. Last piece we have in our parentheses here is plus 4. So we're going to stack that under our 2. Now we add all of those like terms together. Negative 2x squared plus 1x squared would give us negative 1x squared. That's the same thing as negative x squared, so you can eliminate the 1 or keep it. 3x plus a negative x. I know negative x is the same thing as negative 1x. 3 plus a negative 1 is a positive 2x. And then 2 plus 4 is a positive 6. So my final expression is negative 1x squared plus 2x plus 6, or negative x squared plus 2x plus 6. That is adding polynomials. Now we're going to move into subtracting polynomials. When we're subtracting polynomials, I highly encourage you to continue stacking. And then what we're going to think about is think back to when we were talking about integers. When we were subtracting with positive and negative integers, we made sure to add the opposite. We really want to encourage that process with subtracting polynomials to make sure we're combining our terms correctly. So we're going to start by stacking our like terms just like we did on the adding polynomial side. So I see 3x, I'm going to stack that under my 5x. And I see positive 2, I'm going to stack that under my 4. Now with a problem like this, we could subtract nicely. If we go to set up our subtraction, we get 5x minus 3x, which nicely gets to 2x. And then we have 4 minus 2, which nicely takes us to 2. So we see that the answer is 2x plus 2. Pretty simply, we were able to get to that. But as the problems get more complex and we have a lot more negatives involved, I'm going to encourage you to add the opposite. But if you add the opposite, that means you have to take the opposite sign of every number that's in your second part of your expression. So I'm going to need to go in, if I decide to add, and I need to take the opposite of a positive 3x, which is a negative 3x, and the opposite of a positive 2, which is a negative 2. Then I can think of it as adding. 5x plus a negative 3x should still get us to 2x. 4 plus a negative 2 should still get us to positive 2. Let's move on to see how this process is going to be helpful as the problems get more complex. There's a lot more negatives in this setup. Let's start by lining up our like terms. In my second piece of my expression, I see a negative x. So I'm going to line that up with my x's here. Then I see a negative 3. So I'm going to line that up underneath my negative 6. Thinking about subtracting this problem starts to get a lot more difficult now that we have so many negatives going on with our variables and constants. This is a situation where adding the opposite is going to help us understand this problem a little bit better. So I'm going to change my subtraction to addition. If I decide to add the pieces of the expression together, that means I need to go in and do the opposite of all pieces in the second part of my expression. So negative x now becomes a positive x. Negative 3 now becomes a positive 3. Now let's go through and solve. X squared plus nothing is x squared. Negative 4x plus x is negative 3x, because negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. And negative 6 plus positive 3 gives us a negative 3. We have more negatives, so the answer is a negative. Now adding with all those negatives starts to become a lot easier to think through, so that's why we decided to switch it to adding the opposite of all the terms in the second part of our expression. Let's try more examples like that. Go ahead and write down this polynomial. Let's start by stacking the two pieces together by lining up our like terms. X squared gets lined up here underneath 2x squared. 2x gets lined up underneath 6x. And negative 4 gets lined up underneath negative 4. Now for the most part, this subtraction won't be too bad until we get to the negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and add the opposite to help me understand and think through this problem. We're going to switch our subtraction to addition. All of my term signs need to change in just the second part down here. So my x squared becomes a negative x squared. My 2x becomes a negative 2x. My negative 4 becomes a positive 4. Now let's solve. 2x squared plus a negative x squared would give us 1x squared. 6x plus a negative 2x gives us a positive 4x. And negative 4 plus 4 gives us 0. So we can actually eliminate that part of our expression. We do not need to add plus 0 at the end because there's no more constants. So 1x squared plus 4x or x squared plus 4x would be our final expression. One more to try. 2x squared plus 3x plus 2 minus x squared minus 2x. Start by lining up your like terms. I see an x squared here, so I'm going to place that below my 2x squared. And I see a negative 2x, so I'm going to place that below my 3x. We are subtracting these two pieces. Thinking about doing 3x minus a negative 2x, that's going to be difficult for us to think through. So I'm going to add the opposite. That means I take the opposite of both terms in this second piece. So my x squared becomes a negative x squared. My negative 2x becomes a positive 2x. Now I can add the two pieces together. 2x squared plus a negative x squared gives us 1x squared. 3x plus 2x gives us a positive 5x. And my constant 2 has no other piece to add with or combine with, so it's just going to be plus 2 as the constant. My final expression is 1x squared plus 5x plus 2, or you could have just said x squared instead of 1x squared. All right, you guys, talk to your teacher if you have any more questions about this skill.